continue the conversation now with Cosatu's parliamentary coordinator, Matthew Parks. Mr. Parks, good evening to you. A set time for the ANC-led alliance. This was a significant figure within the alliance movement.
Good afternoon, Pauline. Thanks for having us. I think first just to offer our sympathies, our best wishes and condolences to his family, to his friends, to his comrades and colleagues. It's sad when anybody passes away naturally, but also, the former Deputy President, David Mabuza, played a critical role in history of South Africa's struggle. He was among the founding generation of the South African Democratic Teachers Union, Sadtu, was active in Mpumalanga as a teacher, as a principal. But I think also he played his role post-94 in the Mpumalanga legislature, including as an MEC for Education in National Parliament. And I think he played a seminal role, a historical role at Nasrec, the ANC Congress 8 years ago, when he helped really set the country on a path of renewal. And I think people will remember him as a fairly humble person, and that after his term as deputy president, he didn't even stand for a second term. He was happy to set an example to other politicians that there is life after government. You don't have to cling on to government. And he passed away at quite a young age, about 64. So I think that is a bit of a sad note, but he lived a full and an eventful life, and he played his role in South Africa's history.
Yeah, and I want to borrow from exactly what you have just said, that he played a seminal role in the 2017 conference of the African National Congress. Can I borrow from that and ask you the question, what do you think his most significant contribution is going to be, and what are people, particularly in the ANC, the alliance, are going to remember him for?
I think obviously there are many different chapters to his life, and despite his passing at a relatively young age, at 64, so to speak, with many different chapters, as a teacher, as a principal, as a Sadtu activist, but also, beyond 94, as an MEC, as a premier. So a very long and rich career in life. But I think really when it came up to a choice, where South Africa needed to signal firmly that it's on a path of renewal, that we're moving away from the decade of state capture and corruption, we're rebuilding society, we're cleansing the liberation movement, really addressing the frustration of society at large. He was instrumental in making sure South Africa, as part of a leadership collective of the ANC, led by President Ramaphosa, but he was quite instrumental in making sure we went along that path. Not an easy path, not to say it's been all a bed of roses since, but I think he really played one of the key roles in making sure South Africa and the ANC firmly chose that path of renewal. And I think history will remember him kindly in that regard. No person is an angel, but I think when it came up to that critical moment, he made a very bold, decisive decision, and I think history will remember him correctly for that, and correctly, kindly for that critical decision.
Yeah. Can I quickly ask you this follow-up before we close the conversation? And I take to heart what you are saying, that he was no angel, but he's made his mark. What do you think he leaves Mpumalanga with as a legacy, given the many years that he stayed as leader of that province?
I mean, look, he played quite an important role, and his heart was at Mpumalanga. I think he was part of that generation, as you were saying with the professor a few minutes earlier, who kind of raised the profile of Mpumalanga. As an MEC for Education, as a premier, he was active in trying to address the issues. And when I appreciate that generation, himself with others like Matthew Posa and so forth, Tabang Makwetla, really built an administration from scratch in Mpumalanga. There was no provincial administration. It was then kind of carved out of the former Transvaal province. They had to integrate a few homelands, Kwandebele, Kangwane, and so forth, and try to bring together a bit of a sense of cohesion, a bit of a sense of identity. And what I think Ken said, they managed to do that in a sense. Without a doubt, there are many issues too, which I think they themselves often highlighted, have not been addressed in Mpumalanga. Issues of unemployment, of poverty, corruption, and so forth. But I think, that first generation of leadership, I think they did begin to kind of nudge Mpumalanga in a positive light, albeit starting from scratch, and albeit recognizing mistakes were made. None were perfect. But I think even when he, found a bit of hot water when he was in MEC of Education, I think he took it on the chin, accepted mistakes, and sought how to correct and rectify those mistakes. And I think he was not one who's too shy not to occupy the central stage. But even as with that Nasrec, when he helped to ensure the election of President Cyril Ramaphosa, he was also helpful to be part of a team, as part of a team player, to say, let's work together collectively. And I think those are positive legacies that history will reflect positively upon.
Matthew Parks, thank you very much for your time and reflections of the late former Deputy President of the country and a former leader of the ANC, David Mabuza.